What's up, everybody? It's another Tuesday and another episode of the Dynasty Stock Market with Biggs and DFK. We have a special guest today. The tight end guru is in the house. We got Koopa Fiasco, Andrew Cooper. What's up, Andrew? How you doing? And what were your impressions of this whole 2025 NFL draft?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. And yeah, draft as always is crazy. It's like if it went the way we expected, to be boring. I will say, I think the way everything landed, not just for tight end but every position, really smoothed things out a little bit. Like at the top, you have Genty, obviously, but the landing spots for the good players got kind of rough landing spots. And then a lot of the sleepers, like the people were, and I even tweeted about this, that people were in on and saying, like, oh yeah, on the subreddits, they're like, who's gonna be your third round pick? And everyone's saying like Jack Besh and Kyle Williams and Isaac Tesla and some of these, Terrence Ferguson, they all got drafted on day two. So the bottom guys got moved up, the top guys got moved down, and I guess pretty good for the people picking at, the people that won your league, once again, picking at 112 and 212, I guess lucked out a little bit. It's the rich get richer a little bit there. So
Yeah,
still a lot of good options out there, but definitely got a little smoother.
Besh and Tesla, especially those two. Looking at some of the model scoring based on their career production in college, and then looking at their draft capital is kind of wild. It's what we're seeing is a move towards maybe scouting based on athleticism and the eye test rather than looking at pure stats.
Yeah.
One guy that I'm
One other thing I noticed is that a lot of teams drafted players whose best comps were players they already had, right?
yeah,
Like everybody's copying Emeka Egbuka to Chris Godwin. He
right,
goes to the Bucks. How many people were calling Luther Bird and DJ Moore on Twitter?
right.
He goes to the Bears, right? It's like Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins. It's almost like teams looked and said, hey, you know what? We successfully found this guy and we like this guy. And they're saying this guy is the same guy. Let's
Yeah,
just get him. Like
the
very safe move hurts us. Yeah.
Chargers drafted Trey Harris and then signed Mike Williams again, and they have Quentin Johnston, and then
Exactly.
Besh and Jacoby Myers are both power slots that are like big blockers. like,
Right. It's crazy how that happens so many times. And like a Marion Hampton, we finally get like a big back who's good, 6'2", 220. He goes to one of like the 5 teams where the back on the team is actually bigger than he is.
Right.
It's like, how many different teams have a guy that's 230 or 240, right? Just kind of hanging around. I feel like we got smoked a little bit.
Yeah, and that happens every year. Our analysis in the fantasy space is a little bit skewed from what happens in the NFL, but we're really here to talk tight ends, and this is kind of a follow-up show. We did on another channel on another show with a whole lot of other hosts. We had you on and we talked pre-draft about tight ends, and we gave our takes and what we thought of this current class. A lot of that got kind of washed out in the draft. We have landing spots, we have all that stuff. And one of the things that you noted was that it's hard pre-draft to talk about tight ends because landing spot is usually like the most important thing for tight end. But there's one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and that is something that has really, really stuck with me. And that was a suggestion that you made that looking back historically, it is very, very rare for any tight end who's not at least the tight end 1 or 2 of his class to be successful in fantasy football. So tight end 3s are kind of unicorns if they hit. Now, going into the pre-draft process, we had about 7 or 8 tight ends that everybody was kind of looking at as an NFL prospect. But if so what we're looking at with this class is either A, it's an historical class with 7 or 8 legitimate tight end prospects, or B, history is going to hold and there will only be 2 or 3 of these guys that will hit. So at this point with landing spots, where is this class at when we're going into our dynasty rookie drafts?
So that statistic, historically speaking, very rare to find 3 or 4 high-end tight ends from the same class, right? Now, what might be the misleading on the way it was phrased a moment ago is that it's not always the top 2 guys in the rankings or the top 2 guys that are drafted. right? So like
Okay.
when you look at the best all-time class, like for fantasy football purposes, like if you want to take the last like 20 years, 20 actually take all time, the best tight end three in terms of career fantasy points from a class is Mercedes Lewis. Okay, so and he's played for like he's 40 years old, so he's played for a long time. So he's accumulated a lot of fantasy points, but like that doesn't inspire you to be like, wow, it's easy to have 3 or 4 good tight ends from the same class. Now, there are classes that have 2 really good tight ends, a lot of those, like Jimmy Graham and Rob Gronkowski, right? And then there's one tight end class now that has an argument to be the greatest fantasy tight end class of all time, the 2017 class, which has George Kittle, Johnny Smith, Evan Engram, David Njoku, right? The thing about a guy like no, sorry, not Kittle in that class. It's Mark Andrews. But
Okay.
the thing about these classes is that it's not always the top guys that hit. That's what makes it so fun in fantasy football is that a guy like George Kittle was like the wide receiver 7 from his class. And the wide receiver, in a year when guys went in the first round, like Eric Ebron in the first round. And then you've got, guys like Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews wasn't even the first tight end drafted by his own team. And he ended up being one of the best fantasy football tight ends of all time. So you can say, okay, you know what? I like the tight end 2 and the tight end 5 in this class based on, draft order or rankings or whatever. And that can work out. It's just very rare. Like if this class comes out and the top 5 guys are all fantasy relevant, then you're sitting back and saying, okay, this is one of the best tight end classes there's ever been. So unless you're willing to do that, you do kind of have to plant your flags.
Does it look like this could possibly be one of the best classes ever?
So here's the thing. If this class has 2 good players, like let's say Colston Level and Tyler Warren both hit, and then one of the other guys is also a guy that is in the top, tight end 5 to tight end 10 range, then that would make it one of the best tight end classes.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing.
That was
so I think it's possible. I think it's possible.
Kind of what I was alluding to, but there's 5 guys after Loveland and Warren that people think. You got Arroyo, you got Gadsden, you got Fannin, you got like Mason Taylor, especially with his landing spot. That's one thing that we talked about on that previous show was Mason Taylor going to the Jets or the Dolphins was just beautiful. And then you have Gunnar Helm, who's gotten a whole ton of like post-draft hype, and Terrence Ferguson. So there's legitimately 6 other guys who are out there that have high profiles. So what is your take at this point? Just smash all the ones you can and hope for the best?
Yeah,
Taxi Squad is your friend.
My general take is that with guys like Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, because of where they're going, when you get to that point, you have to decide, am I taking a tight end here or not? And again, it's close enough between those two that you can go with the guy you prefer. I prefer Colston Loveland just because he's younger. He got drafted earlier. I mean, it's just, but I don't think either landing spot is conducive to early fantasy production. So you're betting on the long haul, right?
Right.
With the next group, I'm actually on board with the idea of like, get whoever you can at a reasonable value. Like, I don't look at the second round tight ends, Terrence Ferguson and Elijah Arroyo and Mason Taylor, and say, you have to get this guy. He's head and shoulders above the other. I'm a value hawk. Now, if I do have to pick one of them, I'm probably going to pick Terrence Ferguson personally. And I just, based on the scheme, but I like Elijah Arroyo too. I like Mason Taylor. We can get into the whys that I do and don't like them. But again, for me, and again, people want you to have these like hard stances. I do have very hard stances when it comes to redraft, right? When it comes to this year and everything that boils down into that pot, when it comes to Dynasty, it's like you're trying to collect as much value in these drafts as possible. And I don't think you necessarily have to plant your flag all the way, through the mantle of the earth on one of these guys and trade up to get them. I just don't.
Okay. You have any questions, Key, before we get started?
No, let's go ahead and run an ad and jump into this draft.
Let's go.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with Superflex and tight end premium controls. and a Dynasty League sync where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
All right, go ahead and hit that play button for us, Biggs.
Somebody shot Matt.
All right, so we've got a 5-rounder here. I'm gonna go ahead and take your guy, Ashton Genty, new Las Vegas Raider. But Coop's on the clock. You got plenty of time to talk because I got nothing to say about Genty there.
There's nothing to say, man. The guy's awesome. He's super special. Like, people argue about generational talent and all that, but like, if you want to say that Calvin Johnson and Saquon Barkley are A+, this guy to me is at least an A-, right? It's like he's an A. He should be the one in all formats, and I'm going to take the guy here that I believe should be the 2 in all formats, including Superflex. I just think that I like both. For me, I like both film and stats. When the spreadsheets though really speak to us, and and when you watch the film, it's obviously awesome. Like, there's not much nitpicking you can do for Hampton, but when you look at the spreadsheets and they kind of indicate that guys with this guy's production profile, back-to-back, not even just a young breakout, but back-to-back monster years, and, with super consistency, early breakout, and then he gets drafted in the first round, and then he goes to a team that wants to run the ball with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. Like, when you wrap that all up, the odds of him missing are so low. I mean, Dwayne McFarland said that based on his formula and his spreadsheets, the odds of this guy having a top 24 RB season at some point is like 91%.
Ooh.
Right? So like, just based on like there's like the number of people that overlap with him that didn't hit. I mean, it's basically like Rashad Penny. That's it.
Nice.
So like, yeah. So feeling really good about that.
Well, we got a comment from Jamie Pirog, who I don't know if he's in the draft. He doesn't look like it. I have a league where I got Ferguson, Fannin, and grabbed Helm and Gadsden off waivers. We just saw the Baltimore Ravens GM, and he was talking about the idea that pretty much it's splitting hairs when you're talking about the difference between somebody that the other team wants and somebody that you want. So the key is to the most assets that you have, that's a better chance to hit. So it's better to trade back and acquire more picks than to trade up and waste those picks, because the margins are so slim. So Jamie says, I wasn't invited to the draft. Yeah, you were. Send it out on Twitter. So the other thing is, in Chalk's The Art of Dynasty, that's kind of his MO, is he like starts with his first rounder and he just trades back and accrues as many assets as possible. The more assets you acquire, the more likely you are to hit. So a strategy where if you take 4 tight ends out of this class, something's bound to happen, right?
Yeah, and the problem with tight end, though, a lot of times that you need to hold them to get to that point. But, if you have the roster space for them, it's a deeper league, then you can. Because the thing with the tight end is this, and I wrote an article on what it takes to break out as a rookie tight end. Not only do you need to be the top tight end on your team in terms of pass catching, but you need to be a top 2 target on your team. It's very rare for teams to have 3 fantasy relevant pass catchers on their team. If you take every player last year and sort them all into a bucket based on Pro Football Focus's targets, and you take the guy who was 3rd on his team in targets, the highest scoring guy was Rashad Bateman, right? The vast majority of difference-making players are top 2 targets on their team. So for a rookie tight end to break out right away, or as they go, they need to be the best pass catcher on their team, and they need to be a top 2 guy, which we've seen how difficult that can be for a lot of these guys. And a lot of guys, they never get there. Like, we've been waiting for Dallas Goedert to have that opportunity forever. He's stuck behind Ertz. Now he's stuck behind wide receivers. So it's so tough, but you do get the more shots you get. I'm willing to trade up for Genty, but after that, and Hampton as well. But like after that, yeah, take as many shots as you can. And the Ravens, they lead all teams all time in compensatory picks. Like, they play that game 100%. They go out and do whatever they can to get as many picks as they can.
Yeah,
Wow,
and
that's awesome because I've followed your work a while, and I know you recently won some awards for writing. So shout out to you. Everybody, go check that out. But I was applying that top two targets to the tight ends, but in turn, by default, that means even for receivers, if you're not a top two target, then see ya. Because if Bateman's the top
Right.
like third option, then that's rough.
It's true though. It's like, how often do you see a team come out and have 3 pass catchers that are all stars when a team has
It's
a
like the
high end tight
Niners.
end? It's the Niners, right? But the thing with the Niners is that when everyone's healthy, there's usually an odd man out, and also the Niners are the perfect storm to have 3 players at the top because of how much they use the fullback and how much they use the blocking tight end. So to your example, Key, if you go back to 2023 and look at the snaps for Kyle Juszczyk and the snaps for Charlie Warner. And again, they replaced Charlie Warner with Eric Saubert last year. Now they're going to use Luke Farrell. Like, those guys played over 800 snaps. You combine those 2 players in that 1 year, Charlie Warner and Kyle Juszczyk, they played more snaps than Deebo Samuel did. They played more snaps than Brandon Ayuk did. And they got 20 combined targets. When you have those guys on the field soaking up that many snaps, it can really consolidate the targets. And even then, those guys are kind of inconsistent week to week, right? So it is crazy. Like, even the Dolphins use a similar setup with their fullback and their tight end, and you saw Jonnu Smith get stuff done. So it's like, if we can't be a top 2 target, we're looking for those fullback teams. And I'm hearing some rumors, Seahawks using the fullback,
I was about to say we're gonna see it from the Seahawks too.
Eagles
So let's
rumor too.
let's talk about the Seahawks for a second, because we got Elijah Arroyo landing in Seattle, and then we've got another kid, and I mean kid, in AJ Barner, who's a very, very young tight end, who we all saw last year and thought, you know what, this kid's going to cook, and then they go out and they draft another tight end. What is your take on that Seahawks tight end room at this point?
So here's the thing. Whoever the starting tight end is has opportunity if they get the full-time role. If they rotate everybody, then it could be a mess. And that's entirely possible. I hope that isn't what happened. But if you look at the Saints last year where Clint Kubiak was there, they did rotate. You know what I mean? They used Foster Moreau in line. They used Juwan Johnson as the pass catcher. They used Taysom Hill as Taysom Hill. So, like, there's a possibility they do rotate. The reason I'm excited about Elijah Arroyo, and we have to kind of put the kibosh a little bit on AJ Barner, is that they did a press conference where they were asking, the GM and the coach about Elijah Arroyo, and they were like, "We think this guy can actually play split end." That was the comment there. We said this guy can actually play split end. He can play wide receiver for us. So for me, if they're saying that, how are we going to deny that and say, no, this guy's going to end up as an inline blocking tight end, or he's going to end up as nothing? I mean, the problem is, if it's a rotate, you could end up as like Kylan Granson type guy. But I think he has that kind of upside. And Noah Fant, if he stays with the team and he's a starting tight end, I mean, he's the kind of guy that could have a bounce back year and surprise people. As crazy as it sounds, he runs a 4.5 40, and they run that scheme. I mean, and if you really go and look at his stats, what did Jonnu Smith do in his career before his breakout last year that Noah Fant hasn't done? Virtually every year Noah Fant's had has been better than any year Jonnu Smith had with the Titans. I mean, people want to dismiss it, but whoever the starter is going to be the guy. The argument in favor of Elijah Arroyo is $9.5 million. That's what it is. If the Seahawks cut or trade Noah Fant, they save $9.5 million. That's it.
Yeah.
So if one of those guys can beat him out and they decide to move on, then that's good. That's big money right there.
Yeah, I've been a big Noah Fant fan, super athletic guy. Hasn't all come together. Makes me a little nervous. You're on the clock here. I almost took a Seahawk. There's a couple right here, but, decided to hold off here because I've been big on Kyle Williams. But there he goes. Herms takes Jalen Milroe off the board. I mean, just while we're on the Seahawks, any hope for Milroe here as an upside, super athletic Anthony Richardson light, maybe?
Absolutely. I mean, like especially in fantasy football, right? Like, if you sit back and I actually did this last year. I took every quarterback that played at least 16 games and ran at least 90 times. right? And if you go through that list, there's only one quarterback that wasn't a QB1 in fantasy football. It was 2014 Colin Kaepernick. If you're willing to run, the willingness to run, not even being good at running, because we've seen guys like Daniel Jones. I mean, we like Vince Young is a rookie. All these guys, like they actually had QB1 seasons because they were willing to run. The willingness to run is so valuable no matter who you are. So if Jalen Milroe gets the job and he's willing to run 100 times like he was obviously doing in college, then that's a guy that's going to have fantasy value. And that's why I'm willing to take a stab on him over Tyler Shaw and any of these other guys just because he's doing that. Now, I was on the clock here and I took Jalen Noel, but like if I would have taken Kyle Williams because I love him and I'm a Patriots fan and I'm upset at you for doing that. But like Milroe, Ferguson, those are all guys I would consider in this range. And it kind of speaks to like I'd much rather have 2 picks in this range and have any of those guys, including going back to like Jaden Higgins, and that like through that crew, than just have to pick one in this range. Because I like Ferguson, I like Arroyo, Mason Taylor. He is probably the most high risk, high reward of that group, I would say. If you'd like to
a
hear
lot
about
of draft capital there, and obviously the pedigree. And you were talking about top 2 targets. This is my guy, Mason Taylor. I'm like,
right.
regardless of how you feel about Fields, who they're going to throw the ball to? You know, Garrett Wilson got nuked by Devontae Adams coming into the building, and we've always seen it whenever Devontae Adams is on the team. He really is that black hole of targets, and he's gone. And even if someone were to say, "Oh, Garrett Wilson gets all those targets," I just feel like that may be a Devontae Adams thing.
Yeah,
you know,
for real.
So Mason Taylor has some opportunity.
And I'll tell you, so Mason Taylor, I'm going to have him ranked ahead of Ferguson, ahead of Arroyo in redraft and best ball. In fact, I do, just because of the opportunity. Now, the high risk, high reward issue with Mason Taylor is this. Compared to the other guys, he was used as much more of an inline tight end than a blocker. And I know people say like, oh, you know, like I've seen some scouting reports that say that like he's not that player, but LSU had him block on – they had him play inline on 70% of his plays, and they had him block on 16% of his pass plays. That is quite a bit. Most college guys are like 2 or 3%, because if you're good enough to catch passes at the NFL level, then every college team is looking at you and saying, get him the ball, right? So like if your college team is saying, we're going to pass it here, we want you to stay in and block, that is typically an indictment. And for anyone that says, oh, second round is too early to draft a blocking tight end, look at where Drew Sample got drafted, right? Drew Sample got drafted in the second round by the Bengals because he's a really good blocker. So there is some concern there that they look at him and say, hey, you know what? We've got this offensive line issue. We're going to fix it by drafting the best tight end of this group in terms of blocking. So there's upside there if he comes out and he's just the tight end 1 for the team and he's catching a ton of passes. There is a little concern that he ends up just being a Drew Sample, Tyler Kroft, type of guy where, those guys are millionaires and they're still in the league. You know what I mean? But like, that's not what fantasy.
All right. And we'll let you take a breather here to make your pick. But I did end up going with the Rondé Gatson because we got a direct question from someone else whose show you've been on with, Big Chev, here in the draft. He's big on Rondé Gatson, so I couldn't leave this draft without bringing him up. He had mentioned an interview recently that they had with the team, and the team was like, "We love you, man. I think either they traded up or wanted to trade up for him, and they think they can use him immediately on day one." And we've seen different tight ends come in and out of that building that we think maybe they'll get that opportunity for whatever reason. We're not, actually, I think it's career years for Disley last season and the other guys. So,
hey, Tucker Fisk.
So, any love for Gatson according to any of your research?
First of all, the fact that Will Disley is still playing football is it's a modern miracle. Like he's a medical marvel, that guy. This dude, he actually tore his Achilles and then he tore his patella tendon, which is a death sentence. And then he suffered a broken leg that Pete Carroll, when he was describing it, he said that he broke his leg in a way that we've never seen before. And this is professional football personnel. and they said, I've actually never seen somebody break their leg like that. So like the fact that he's playing football still is incredible, dude. So shout out Will Disley. With Oronde Gadsden, here's my thoughts on this guy. And these are my thoughts before the draft. They're my thoughts after the draft. If you like Harold Fannin, you should like Oronde Gadsden because both these players are big slot type players that have tremendous hands and are willing to try to make things happen after the catch. I mean, Oronde Gadsden, he had more contested catches last year than any other tight end. He had like 17, and the next highest was Tyler Warren with like 13. Like again, it was at Syracuse, so it's hard to judge. But like Harold Fannin was doing his at Bowling Green. You know, I watched Corey Davis still has like every record ever for everything in the MAC, and you know how things panned out there. You know what I mean? Like if you look at the records for everybody, like Ashton Genty even in the MAC. I mean, like who's the all-time leading passer in college football? Case Keenum playing in like the Midwest. You know what I mean? It's like you have to discount the production to some degree. So like Harold Fannin, I still like him, but for me, there's no real difference now that he went in the third round between my comp for him coming in, which was Jatavian Sanders, right? They're both guys that probably should play in the slot. They aren't particularly fast, but they know how to produce, right? And Jatavian Sanders, people say that like they don't like that comp, but I love Jatavian Sanders. So like I do like the comp. I like both the players, but Oronde Gadsden, like he goes to an offense now that has a offensive coordinator in Greg Roman that has a top 5 all-time tight end season under his belt with Mark Andrews in a season at which that tight end played 85% of his snaps at wide receiver. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're looking for a guy that knows how to use a tight end as a wide receiver, there are like 5 of them in the world, and 2 of them in Doug Peterson and Shane Gailey aren't in the league anymore. So you need to go to like a Greg Roman or a Sean Payton to get what you need, to get somebody that knows how to truly use big slot tight end. Obviously, Andy Reid can do it because you've seen what Travis Kelce can do, but like only certain teams are doing that, you know? So I love the landing spot. I like Oronde Gadsden a lot. I love where you're just picking all my guys right before. I don't know why I picked second because I was like, I'll just take Hampton. Didn't realize I was going to get sniped left and right.
Well, if you look at Big's team over here with the all tight end U squad, once I noticed what he was doing, I was like, all right, let me get on here a little bit late. But
I was going to take Evans too.
Yeah, I can't let him get Evans also. Because you mentioned Jatavian Sanders, and the weirdest thing is they went and got another tight end when they seem to like Tommy Tremble. He actually got way more usage last year than I thought, and Sanders played decently later in the season. I'm trying to remember what Sanders' hiccup was. I could have sworn he was dropping catches.
He got hurt pretty bad. He had a couple drops, but he got hurt pretty bad. He caught one and got upended and landed directly on his neck. Like, I was watching. It was one of those ones where I was watching and I was like, just look away. I was like, I didn't want to see the replay, but he turned out okay. The thing is, if you go back and look at the games that Tommy Tremble missed, because Ian Sanders is just like, Ian Thomas is just like a clunker. I'm not worried about him. But if you go look at the games that Tommy Tremble missed, dude, Jatavian Sanders was going out, getting 5, 6, 7 targets, catching a bunch of balls. Like, he was great. We were using him in DFS. It was working out great in those weeks where Tremble missed. It just stinks that Tommy Tremble's back now. You know what I mean? But, like, for me, if you're going to bet on a tight end, like, people are like, oh, they rank Cade Otton high. I'm like, well, Cade Otton really only plays well when the wide receivers are hurt. And now they have Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan on top of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Like, what's his path to that happening? Whereas I look at a guy like Jatavian, right? None. I look at a guy like Jatavian Sanders, and what's the path? Well, Ted McMillan could bust. Ted McMillan could be N'Keal Harry. I hate to say it, but it's possible. Corey Davis. I mean, he could bust. Xavier Legette, for some reason, jumps every time the football's thrown his way. I don't know why he does that, but like, what if he's just not good? Adam Thielen is 100. You know what I mean? Jalen Coker is, Jalen Coker is kind of the most interesting one, and it's like they just went drafted a wide receiver. So it's like, what if this guy just kind of steps into a role and takes that step? So I'm willing to bet on uncertainty always, and there's more uncertainty there than there is with other teams.
I want to address a couple things real quick. Number one, obviously, I'm doing it for the memes in this one. if I hadn't been, these picks in the 5th round, which I'm absolutely loving, Taj Brooks, Dante Thornton, and Ty Felton, they absolutely would have gone earlier than this. But if you can get these guys in your 5th round or even in your 4th round, these guys are fantastic. There was some coach speak yesterday that came out from the Cincinnati camp where they said something about Taj Brooks is like a bowling ball covered in razor blades. And then Dante Thornton is getting a whole lot of steam. Ray G, Q just kind of pumped him up yesterday too. I absolutely love him. I'm grabbing him everywhere that I can, especially off the waiver wire when he goes undrafted in rookie drafts. And then Ty Felton, he very well could usurp Jordan Addison pretty quickly. I want to address the chat real quick.
Yeah, I will say, if I can comment on a couple of those guys.
Yeah.
Like Dante Thornton, the beautiful thing for him is that he's the only guy over there besides Brock Bowers that has like true split end size, right? Like if you're looking for a guy to actually line up with their foot tethered on the line on the outside, he's like what, 6'5", right?
Yeah, 6'5" and runs a 4.3.
So they have plenty of those like power slot guys, Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh. I mean, Trey Tucker was like top 7 in the league in routes run last year, and he was wide receiver like 1,000 million. So
it wasn't that bad. That's been addressed on the show. He had the 15th and 25th best quarterbacks throwing deep balls, and now he has a top 3 guy. But he's going to
was that a pro Trey Tucker take just now?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
He was a sacrificial route runner last year. And so I kind of going into the pre-draft season, I was like, okay, Trey Tucker, here we go. We could cook with Geno Smith. And then they took Dante Thornton, and I was like, all right, he's done.
He's gone. They got they got enough of those guys over there.
Yeah.
I also
it's gonna be Thornton.
For my pick, too much hate. I think Savion Williams getting like a lot of hate for with those type guys. I'm always willing to say, what if the scouts are right and you're wrong? You know what I mean? Like everyone's like, oh, he's just Cordarrelle Patterson. Well, Cordarrelle Patterson is like I was starting Cordarrelle Patterson at running back in leagues. You know what I mean? Like, what if he's Ty Montgomery? Well, Ty Montgomery had a really good season playing running back. I mean, what if he's just a good player? What if this is a team that, that has Jaden Reed, who's never played more than 75% of snaps in the game, and Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, who have never had a 100-yard game in the regular season. Doubs had one in the playoffs, but never in the regular season. In 5 combined seasons, no 100-yard games. And then Christian Watson, whose dad says he won't even play this year. Like, what if this guy is just better than those guys? You know?
Does Watson not have symmetry this year?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he'd have to tear up his other knee pretty bad to get the symmetry going.
There are 2 guys who have graduated on every C2C team that I own, and that is Aronde Gadsden and Savion Williams.
Right. It's like they picked him, and the thing is, we've done this so many times. Like, people didn't like Terry McLaurin, because they weren't hyped on him before the draft, and he didn't have a lot of production, but he went in the 3rd round and he turned out to be good. People didn't like Nico Collins because he didn't have production. He went in the 3rd round. He turned out to be good. People don't like Pat Bryant. Guess what? Pat Bryant could be good. Like, we need to leave our preconceived notions at the wayside and stop reaching for guys that went in like the 5th and 6th round. Like, I don't think guys like and I like Iamanar, but he shouldn't be going before Pat Bryant. He shouldn't be going before these other guys. It's like when everybody remember the year that Hakeem Butler was like everyone's like top 5 wide receiver before the draft, and then he fell to the 4th. He fell to the 4th round, and people were still drafting him ahead of Terry McLaurin. Right? It's like, let it go. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. You like the draft happened, and now we adjust.
Yep. We have a couple people claiming victory in this mock draft.
They all won.
No, I won because I've never lost a mock draft in my life. Chev, we love you too. And then also Jamie said Biggs also has Bowers on that team. I have Bowers and Michael Mayer on that team. So let's talk about that real quick, because I know it's not rookies, but we have Bowers, and Bowers had his big breakout. That came while Mayer was injured. Do you see them moving forward with Mayer as an inline guy and Brock being in the same, kind of like what they did in the second half of last year?
Yeah, that's exactly how it's going to be. I mean, Bauer. You don't take any snaps away from Bowers in favor of Mayer, right? And it's the same thing we see with a lot of the teams. I mean, people are always shocked to see Noah Gray's snap total at the end of the year, because it's always like 700 snaps, right? It's like he plays like 60-70% of the snaps. In some of the games, he plays like the whole game because he's the inline tight end, and Travis Kelce plays big slot and just goes and catches passes. I mean, we've seen it forever. For the longest time, we've seen teams do this. It's just we only notice when the inline tight end is catching a bunch of passes. The year Mark Andrews 1 year in his second season was a top 5 tight end in fantasy, and he played like 430 snaps, and Nick Boyle played 700. Dallas Goedert playing inline with Zach Ertz playing slot. I don't care about what the inline tight end is doing. It doesn't matter to me if you have Adam Trotman or Foster Moreau or whoever. That's a good thing. That's a good thing for fantasy, because that guy's not going to get 100 targets. I want as many guys on the field for as much time as possible that aren't going to catch the ball. Give me
Right.
all the fullbacks. Give me all the clunky blocking tight ends. Get them all out there, and I just throw all the targets to the one guy who can catch. So yeah, I love Michael Mayer. I don't want them to trade Michael Mayer. We don't want Brock Bowers doing anything that a normal tight end would do.
And then we had the retro coach not worried about Njoku and Cleveland Biggs. And that's another thing that I wanted to ask you about, especially with Harold Fannin and David Njoku with his quote unquote breakout season last year. It was essentially the one season that, I mean, we've seen his points per game, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Last year he basically stayed healthy and had a pretty good season. Do you see that tight end room changing? Do you see Fannin kind of being on the back burner for a couple years while Njoku cooks, or do you see Fannin maybe being lined up as kind of like a split end type guy with Njoku in line?
Yeah, I mean, Fannin could end up just being like, I think it's going to be Njoku doing his thing, and I think Fannin's just going to be a guy that comes on the field as an extra tight end from time to time without Njoku coming out of off the field. Like if Njoku's hurt, but you're not going to take Njoku out to put Fannin in as a rookie. I think it's going to be 2 tight end sets with Fannin in like a H-back type role or a big slot type role. I think that's what you're going to see. And the thing with Fannin that people always ignore is the possibility that this guy just ends up being a big slot player that isn't necessarily better than all the wide receivers, which just makes him a part-time player. And we've seen it a million times, but we just forget about all those times. Like guys like Cameron Brate and Kylan Granson and Jacob Hollister. I mean, go look at Kylan Granson's highlights at SMU. I mean, he was ripping off a huge chunk plays just like Harold Fannin was. So was Jacob Hollister in the same division. I mean, it's like these guys, you get to the next level, and if you're not going to be an inline blocking tight end, which Harold Fannin is not, then he's got to just be better than the slot guys. And as long as they have Jerry Jeudy, that's not going to be the case. So it's very rare that you do have like an Evan Engram or these guys that are just undersized and are flat out better. That's what you need to bet on Fannin being. But like, there's a real possibility that he just ends up being a Trey Burks or a Kylan Granson, and that's fine. That's a professional football player. It's just not one that we use for fantasy.
And we have a quick question from Brandon Edwards: T. Higgins or the 105 and 12 team Superflex tight end? So, say in this one we had Tet McMillan go. Would you rather have Tet McMillan or T. Higgins?
T. Higgins. I mean, unless you're completely blowing it up, you want T. Higgins because like he's not even that old. Like, and he's awesome. He gets hurt, but like in Dynasty, I don't care as much about injuries. I truly don't, because in Dynasty, when I'm playing to win, I build my team that way. So if I have T. Higgins or if I had Keenan Allen all these years, or if I have James Conner, you know that they're going to miss time. So you just build your team that way. So if you have T. Higgins, you don't stop at T. Higgins. You make sure you have players, but like I have no problem with injury prone guys because I just use James Conner when he's healthy and he's awesome. And then when he's not healthy, I use somebody else.
Trey Henderson or T. Higgins?
I mean, if you're in any position to win now, I play to win. So many people doing like this productive struggle and just
Yeah.
like, don't worry, I'm gonna win 3 years in a row starting in 2027. It's like if you have to rebuild, then you have to rebuild. Otherwise, play to win. T. Higgins ranked ahead of all those guys for me. Uh, I guess Genty, maybe Hampton, but like again, you're sacrificing the ability to win now if you're just putting worse players in your lineup.
That's
I played, you know what I mean? It's like, think about your lineup, right? If your team is so loaded that T. Higgins would be on your bench, then yeah, go for the younger guy, Travion Henderson. But like, if you're talking about your lineup is almost certainly better with T. Higgins in it than any rookie besides Genty.
Yeah, people are going through that decision every day now. I'm in some drafts, had some finished already. And yeah, look, you keep mentioning how people forget certain things from the past. Well, people forget some of these rookies are going to bust.
Right.
So we got to factor that in. And we know what Higgins is, and he's coming fresh off of a contract with a great quarterback. You can be a good player with a bad quarterback, and it might take a while. So if you want to win, sometimes it's worth taking that perceived value hit. Maybe 105 is worth more on paper, but you're trying to win leagues. T. Higgins, he can help.
I'll tell you, it's the biggest mistake that people make because if you just always play to win, then you're gonna win one of these times. And the thing is, when you do finally build, I've seen so many times people build the teams that they think are going to be a super team, and then you know what they find out? It's not that easy to win. Even when you have by far the best team, a lot of times you lose. Like that's fantasy football. Like I've had the best team in my league, one of my leagues, for literally 5 years, and I've won one time. And I've finished top 3 every time. But like it's fantasy football. It's always going to be tough. So I just play to win. And like you said with these rookies, the hit rates are bad. 50% in the first round, 30% in the second round, 25% in the next round, and so on. Like no wonder these NFL teams are sitting here and saying like, oh, this guy could be. People are saying this is Chris Godwin and he's got good attitude. We're going to take Emeka Ibuka even though we already have this guy, because if we mess this up, we could all be fired, right? You know what I mean? Like, let's just take the safest possible pick because we could lose our jobs and all our friends could lose our jobs. So like, I don't know. I don't want to be one to bash rookies, but I just think people, especially this time of year, get so excited about all these picks and how their team's going to change. And it's like, especially with this this wide receiver group that like nobody loved coming in, and then they all ended up kind of buried. I don't think it's going to change your life.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, this last point on it, where we did have kind of that outlier year where the running backs did great for us and were mainly healthy, relative. So, at that 105, no one's looking at a receiver there. They're mainly looking at a running back. But problem is, in this class, there's not really a receiver to build your team around. And traditionally, a lot of folks do like to build around receivers. So it's kind of also 2 birds, 1 stone. It's a now asset and a dynasty asset if you get T. Higgins, where it's really hard to get a receiver that you can rely on in this class at all.
Oh, dude, the team, you just reminded me, the team that team I was just talking about that lost again this year, I like pushed my chips and I had, on this team, I have Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry and David Montgomery and Devon Achane and like all these. I'm loading up on running backs. If somebody gets hurt, it doesn't matter. You could start them all, and I still lost, dude. It's like,
yeah,
if you're pushing the chips, push them all the way in. And if you're on the flip side, if you do finally decide to blow it up, which I rarely do, but in one league I am doing that, then blow it all the way up. Like this halfway in stuff is how you end up with a bad pick every year, and you end up with weird players.
We have a guy in our home league who just based on him kind of sitting back and taking on offers from people trying to be cute. His quarterback is Joe Burrow. He's got Jahmyr Gibbs. He has Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Amon-Ra St. Brown as his wide receivers. He has Trey McBride, and then on his bench, he has Brian Thomas Jr. and T. Higgins.
Good
Like how did we all just like gift him those players?
Yeah. All the content creators, they love to trade and they like making content about the trade. So sometimes that happens. Like I was in a league where I ended up winning, but the other team, from the startup, he was trading like crazy. I was trading honestly to try to keep up. And when it came down to the playoffs, I actually did a trade with that other team because I was trying to shed some of my excess that I knew I wasn't going to start anyway. And I ended up trading like Rodgers to him because he had an injury. And then in the Super Bowl, Rodgers had like 2 points. And I say that to say, sometimes if you had all those running backs, like maybe you were starting all of them, but if you're not, maybe that's where you shed one of those and turn it into a different position or some kind of asset that you can.
I did do that. I traded away Aaron Jones, and he played great. But like, still, it's like I loaded up. My tight ends in that league too are George Kittle, Mark Andrews, and Sam Laporte. It's like I didn't have my defenses are the Ravens and the 49ers. It's like I didn't like that's why I just try and tell people I'm like, you spend all this time playing for the future. When the future comes, you still might not even win. If you have any shot at winning, you should try. Like if you're mathematically within the possibility of winning, you should try, because you'd be surprised, and you'd be surprised how adding one or two older guys can get it done.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hate Chuck. He's just the worst, dude. He's just the worst.
We get it, Chuck. You're snide.
I have notifications. I have notifications on for literally no one on Twitter.
Shout out Chuck Bass,
except Chuck Bass, because I just need to see. I need to see what's next. So, shout out Chuck. He rules, dude.
Yeah,
but yeah, man. And I actually did a trade just now. Somebody in a Superflex league. We're both blowing up our teams. I inherited this team, so I'm blowing it up, and he had the first overall pick. He was like, you know what? I'm not ready to compete now. I'm gonna take your pick. I'll trade you. He traded me the 101 for my pick, the 102 and the 202. We're both in the same boat, but I said I'm taking Genty, so you can have the picks. So we'll see who wins this one. But he ended up taking Cam Ward, and I don't know who he's gonna. We haven't gotten to the next round yet, but like in Superflex, I know you need quarterbacks, but I'm like, what if everybody stinks? What if all these guys stink? Go look at for anybody out there, go look at the 2013 draft. There's a world where like there's 4 good players from this draft and everybody else is terrible.
My only 101 so far, obviously, it had to be Genty. I have another one that's going to be Hunter, but it's an IDP league. And speaking of first picks, one of the worst days of my life was when I got my email that said that the Andrew Cooper Fantasy Cares Eliminator League had done the randomization for the draft, and in an 18-team best ball league with a 3rd round reversal, I got the first pick.
Beautiful, dude.
With some pretty crazy scoring, DB scoring, punter scoring, kicker scoring, return scoring, coach scoring. That's going to be fun. But
one of our members asked me, they go, "Are you going to do a best ball grid like you do for best ball leagues for the FCE eliminators?" And I was like, no. It's the most ridiculous scoring of all time. It would take me just to figure it out. It would take me the next 2 weeks. These would be over by the time I put together the grid.
Yeah, there's a machine out there. It's called Fantasy on Draft, and you can create a customized draft cheat sheet, basically, where you input the scoring, and then it'll give you like the projections and where guys should fit. And so I sat down to do that, and like it wouldn't even take the inputs that I had, and I was like, okay, I'll just sort my points and take Jalen Hurts. Like
I've done that too, though. I've done that I did those for these last year, and I looked at the rankings and I said, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Like I can't. I'm like you can embarrass yourself so badly reaching for guys that are supposed to return punts and then they don't. It's like I can't do it, dude. I can't. I'm just going to take the players I like. It's for charity. It's for a good cause, and you know what? I think the things will turn out okay.
Well, I am going to bank on one more year of Kevontae Turpin.
God, dude, he rules. Hey, you know what? The beat writers over there love that guy. He's got an incredible name, and also Jerry did nothing in terms of adding weapons. Who do you think, Key? Who do you think is going to be like? Let's take CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson out. Who do you think is going to be the wide receiver 2 in terms of targets on that team?
Brutal, man. So we saw Tolbert step up. All right, so it's got to be Tolbert, man.
I think it's Tolbert.
They're
I think
banking
you're right.
on him. I'm actually. I don't know if you asked me because I'm a Cowboys guy, because I am.
I know.
And it's brutal, man. So we're like, it was a team trenches versus team weapons. That was the pre-draft kind of situation we were in, and the trenches won, and that's fine. Dak's coming off an injury, but Dak still got to put the team on his back now. So it's going to be tough. Chev in the chat, he had asked me about a Cowboy. I can't still show it here, but they have a UDFA that's pretty tall. Could be a big target for them.
Yes.
Well, we got to
who was
shout out.
who was the UDFA? I love scrolling through the UDFAs, man. It's the best. The best names for UDFAs are the Saints guys. They got Marcus Yarns and a guy Kelvonte Moochie Dixon.
Moochie, yeah.
Nice.
I feel like I got to get some Moochie Dixon on my team on principle alone.
So I got to tell you, Coop, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I am the fountain of knowledge for Lan Larison. Is there anything that you need to know?
Oh, and real quick, it was Trayshawn Holden. That's the
Trayshawn Holden. Yeah, there's
Trayshawn
there's a little steam on him coming out of camp. He had some comments that he said he was going to tear everybody's faces off.
Yeah,
So.
we'll see.
Sorry. So what was that? What was
what do you need to know about Lan Larison?
The Golden Goat.
Who's Lan Larison? I need
New
to know.
England Patriots UDFA running back.
Tell me all about him, dude. Tell me.
All
Give
right.
me the stump speech.
So converted quarterback from high school.
Love it.
Was unrecruited, converted to running back in college. 6'1", 215, ran a 4.46 a month after ankle surgery at his pro day. Would have had the second fastest shuttle time. His highlight reel includes multiple one-handed catches and hurdling over guys. He's a former rodeo guy. Used to compete.
Oh, that's
in rodeos.
this guy. That's this guy. Okay.
He in his final season at UC Davis, which is where I'm at, he had 1,400 yards rushing and 800 yards receiving and 23 touchdowns. Basically propelled the team into the FCS playoffs, then hurt his ankle and they got knocked out. Otherwise, he probably would have been at the Senior Bowl. He would have gone to the combine, except he was coming off of surgery. He would have run faster than a 4.46. He would have been one of the most athletic running backs at the combine, and he would have gone probably in the 4th or 5th round rather than UDFA. So, and he's your guy. He's a Mike Vrabel guy.
The chat is loving it, dude. It's like who's this guy, Paul Bunyan? The tall tales coming. He's never fumbled once. He took.
Yeah.
He lassoed a tornado and rode it all the way to New England.
I'm telling you, it literally is like that. So like he's going to be the perfect Mike Vrabel guy. Special teams. He's going to be like, he's a hard-nosed dude. He's gritty. He's a lunch pail guy. Vrabel's going to love him, and he's going to earn a spot at some point. But you should be excited about this dude. Go back and watch as much Lan Larison footage as you can, because it's exciting.
About to, dude. He sounds like Red Dead Redemption RJ Harvey, dude. Like converted QB, hurdle tall buildings in a single bound, only makes one-handed catches. Like, so let's build the lore for this guy as high as we can go. I'm fully
I've been trying to. I have him and his mom and his dad in my chat, in my DMs on Twitter. Like, like I interviewed him, and his mom and dad DM with me. It's hilarious.
I actually do. It's funny how that happens, because I do talk to Stone Smart's mom and aunt from time to time as well. They're like, appreciate the support. I'm like, hell yeah, dude. Another converted quarterback, dude. It's like, these are the guys, man.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my guy, Lan Larison.
Yeah,
Better check it out.
Still has a shot behind Mason Taylor. And hey, let's make sure to make a promise. We'll take a shot whenever Lan Larison gets his first Patriots touchdown.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And it is an
Wherever
absolute Star Wars name. Also,
Lando.
Drink a whole bottle if Tucker Kraft ever scores a touchdown.
I mean, man, we'd be blacked out real quick on that one. But the Lan Larison, I'm in on Lan Larison. Let's go.
Yeah,
include me in the fan club, and we'll fire. Hopefully, we'll fire up the shots, because I mean, the Patriots, it's wide open over there. You know, I know they are obviously drafted Travion Henderson, but they seem to always find ways to get these guys involved if they like them. You know.
Yeah, and they know UDFAs. Shout out Julian Edelman. And my last pick in this draft, I took Tommy Mellott, he was a quarterback for FCS, and he's converting to wide receiver this year for the Raiders. They did draft him in the 6th round, but his comp is Julian Edelman. So let's go. And we got to get you out of here, Coop, so you can go do your family stuff. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us. It was awesome as always. And sorry I have to beat you in the eliminator, but that's how it goes.
I appreciate you being sorry about that.
Tell everybody where they can find you and all of your work stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me at Coupe Fiasco on Twitter. I tweet out everything I do. Right now, we got a best ball cheat sheet up. It's a lot cheaper than it was last year. If you're a member, you get it automatically. So that's going to be rocking. Also, I want to plug something right now. Everyone look down at Key's shirt. Get in on Fast Draft, okay? Mm-hmm. And start doing those drafts so that mine can fill when I want them to, and I can play when I want them to. I've been setting my lineup and doing a lot of like the quick ones, the turbo ones. But get in on that. I'm actually going to write an article on my Fast Draft experience because I enjoy the product. But start playing, okay? Because I need to. I want to do these drafts, and they don't always fire when I want them to. So everybody get in on that. So.
It's an awesome game. Most of the people here know about it. And shout out to Fantasy Alarm, the newest Fast Draft affiliate. And where are you going to be doing your Scott Fish Bowl live draft?
So I'm actually hosting. I'm in charge of setting up the Boston one, but we're not doing it in Boston proper. We've done it in Boston the last few years. We did Fenway. We did the Seaport. This year, we're taking it to Gillette Stadium. We're doing it right. You can actually see down the tunnel into the stadium from the spot we have set up over at the Harp. Yeah, it's gonna rule, dudes. We're all set up there. Come, sign up, and if you don't sign up, come hang out. I made sure there's enough room for people to hang out and chill. I think some of my local buddies, are gonna come hang out and watch us draft and all that. So I'm gonna do that. I might actually draft. I haven't decided if I'm gonna draft there, if I'm gonna draft in New York, or if I'm gonna draft online. But I'll be around.
Yeah, I'm trying to get down to the Nashville live draft. So I'm hosting the NorCal live draft in Sacramento. So if you're in Scott Fish Bowl, or if you want to be in Scott Fish Bowl, go sign up. If you're in the Northeast, go draft in Boston. If you're on the West Coast, go draft in Sacramento in the NorCal divisions. I want to. I'm set up to draft in Sac now, but I'm trying to go down to the Nashville, and maybe I'll draft there. And if I'm going, I may as well draft there.
Yeah, just make it out to everybody out there. Make it out to one. It's a blast. I see Joe Colton in the chat. He always comes to ours, dude, and we have such a good time. It's like you get to meet all these people that you argue with on Twitter, and you find out when you go to these events, the expo, the live drafts, that you actually have more in common with these people than you have differences. You're all football fans, and if the biggest difference is you disagree on who to draft in fantasy football, you actually might probably be friends. You know what I mean? It's funny how like we create these niche communities where we're like, oh, I hate that guy. You actually probably don't hate that guy. You just disagree on Ramondre Stevenson or whoever. So come out to a live draft, meet some people. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Yeah, and support's a good cause. Toys for kids. Okay, come on out, Scott Fish.
Play Scott Fish Bowl. Go to the Fantasy Alarm. Check out at Coupa Fiasco's work. At Coupa Fiasco on Twitter, and just Google search Fantasy Alarm. Play Fast Draft. We love you guys, and we will see you next week.
Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.
All right.